Drop it. All right, power. Okay, who are we kidding? Let's be honest. Okay, I'm gonna retire the power panel until we're back in the studio and we actually have a power panel. So I hope you enjoyed that last one for now in the COVID days. Okay, but it is in fact the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur and Kasparian. We are in fact powerful, but we're powerful every day. So it's not really a power panel any different on Friday. Okay, let's talk programming. Let's have fun. Twitch. Has Common Room tonight, so check that out. Now this is crazy. Common Room has got a Pittsburgh invasion tonight. Okay, Wysocki, commander of the armies of the East, is there. Hannah Gibbons, Chris Hawk. Okay, so Brett, you got to ask Chris about all of his different military names. He was in the Navy, and he has all these bad-ass names, which are just his positions, okay?
No, Chris's military stories are the most incredible stories of all time. They got us through the DNC while we were staying at the Howard Johnsons in Philly in 2016, okay? That experience was special, but Chris made it extra special in the best possible way.
Yeah, totally. Chris was a rock star there. So that's tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern, twitch.tv/TYT. So Pittsburgh does all of our publishing for us and a lot of the social media, and they've got the boiler room there. So the boiler room meets the common room. Oh, okay. You don't want to miss that at 9 o'clock tonight. I might get high and watch. All right, speaking of watching, JR's doing a watch party on Twitch on Saturday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. So this is when you guys watch movies together. So because Amazon owns Twitch, if you have Amazon Prime, you guys can do this together and you can subscribe to us for free, but we still get the money, which is awesome. So watch a movie with JR on Saturday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. That must mean that his, oh, by the way, you can help choose the movie at tyt.com/polls/JR rated. But if you just go to /polls, you'll see it right there. That must mean his family's out of town. Okay. All right. Keeping it real on the Young Turks since 2002. All right, we got a big show ahead for you guys. Let's do it.
All right.
Oh, sorry, I knew I was forgetting something. I'm bringing it back. Okay. Congratulations to Ricky Strom and Daniela, or at least congratulations to Ricky and Daniela. Good luck. Ricky Strom for TYT Sports just got married. So Ricky and Daniela, we love you. We're proud of you. Mazel tov, the whole thing. Okay. Everybody check out TYT Sports. Everybody check out their wedding, but you can't. Okay. Anyways. Okay.
Okay, we got to get to the news, Jake. Let's do it.
The news. Fine. You win the news.
All right.
I recently resigned as the vice chairman of the Postal Board of Governors when it became clear to me that the administration was politicizing the Postal Service, with the Treasury Secretary as the lead figure for the White House in that effort.
That was David Williams, and last April, he actually resigned from the Postal Service's Board of Governors in protest of the new Postmaster General's actions within the post office. Of course, that's Louis DeJoy. Now he's testifying before the Congressional Progressive Caucus about how Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and DeJoy tried to exert their influence over mail operations and the finances involved with the post office. So let's listen in on a little more of what he had to say during his testimony.
By statute, the Treasury was made responsible for providing the Postal Service with a line of credit. The Treasury was using that responsibility to make demands that I believe would turn the Postal Service into a political tool, ending its long history as an apolitical public infrastructure. Clearly, the president was determined that the Postal Service should inflict harm on Amazon delivery by sharply raising parcel shipping prices on everyone by 400% or more. On the way to attacking a political foe, I was concerned that the American citizens would feel the shock of the price increase and that American supply chains would lose much of their value, harming businesses and our competitive position globally. The president was also scoffing at the Postal Service, calling it a joke, while a large number of our employees were dying daily as they struggled to perform our mission during a deadly pandemic. The president eventually admitted that he was withholding COVID-19 relief funds from the Postal Service so that it could not reliably enable voting in his upcoming election.
So this testimony was important because not only did Williams talk about the various ways in which Donald Trump tried to exert his own influence on the post office for political reasons, Donald Trump also tried to play a role in price hikes and increases for the post office because of its partnership with Amazon, which of course Donald Trump is incredibly salty and bitter about. But of course that's part of the story. The bigger part is how these actions are going to impact the way people are able to vote. It could potentially impact the outcome of the general election. And so David Williams did resign in protest of what was going on. He also said during the testimony, quote, "The secretary, meaning Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, has called over board members to provide instructions and requests and express his displeasure, which is really striking. I'm not sure I've run into that before, where one department is trying to run another department. Normally you would simply reject the effort and report it to Congress. And in this case, Congress, of course, is aware of some of these actions that are taking place, which is why Williams not only testified before this particular committee, but today, Louis DeJoy testified before a Senate committee, which we'll talk about later in the show. But Cenk, before I get to more videos, I wanted you to jump in.
Yeah, there are two different issues here. One is a systematic dismantling the post office for both political and profit motives. So generally speaking, the right wing thinks destroying government is a good thing, making sure that it can't run. And part of the reason for that is that then you have to use private industry, which just totally coincidentally happens to be their donors. So if they dismantle the post office, FedEx, UPS, et cetera, will have so much more business. And obviously, look, if you had to just send a simple piece of mail, stamp is 55 cents, as you all know. FedEx, UPS, those private guys charge at a minimum around $9. So we're talking 20 times the cost. The amount of money that FedEx and UPS would make would be extraordinary, but they're not the only ones. And so that's where DeJoy comes into the picture. DeJoy has $30 to $75 million invested in post office competitors and contractors. Now, the contractor is relevant too, because if the post office can't do its regular job, oh, look at that. It has to contract out to DeJoy's companies. I mean, the corruption is unreal, unreal. The fact that Democrats have allowed any of this is just the saddest thing that's ever happened to our government. Now, the second issue is this particular election. And to me, this testimony is super interesting because Williams shows Mnuchin's involvement. Now, look, once they put DeJoy into place, they don't really have to touch it. DeJoy, for his own personal benefit, wants to dismantle the post office so he could make tens of millions of dollars. They could just let that go, right? No, Mnuchin being involved indicates it's a bigger emphasis on this election. Make sure that the post office is in shambles by election day.
In fact, in the next clip, Williams specifically talks about how involved Mnuchin was when it came to recruiting employees within the post office, specifically people like Louis DeJoy as Postmaster General, and the type of relationship that these types of nominees from the Trump administration had with Steve Mnuchin. So let's take a look at that next clip.
The Treasury Secretary also insisted that all Republican appointees on the Board of Governors and the Postal Regulatory Commission come to his office and kiss the ring and receive his blessing before confirmation. His continued contacts with him away from the full board continued issuing orders and expressing his approval and disappointment in their performance. The secretary was keenly interested in labor agreements, postal pricing increases, and especially volume discounts being given to Postal Service's largest customers, Amazon and UPS and FedEx. The Postal Service replied to the early demands from the Secretary, explaining that the provisions he was asking for were illegal, but the concerns were ignored.
So he also elaborated on that point further, and this was reported by Common Dreams, where he was asked whether the board interviewed other qualified candidates for Postmaster General. Williams answered in the affirmative and characterized DeJoy as uniquely unfit for the job, recounting that he had to be coached through his interviews. Williams said DeJoy's appointment was pushed by John Barger, a board member and Republican donor who, according to Williams, helped DeJoy finish a number of sentences where he got stuck and explained to the board that what Mr. DeJoy meant during the presentation. So he was uniquely unqualified for this position. And with the help of one of the board members, he was able to get through that confirmation process. And so these are the things that were happening behind the scenes that the general public was completely unaware about. And unfortunately, if this fight doesn't continue and we don't get the changes that we need, it could have a significant impact on the outcome of the election. Just based on what we've heard from DeJoy during his testimony today, it's clear that hundreds of mail sorting machines have been taken out of service, and he is unwilling to put them back into service unless we really fight and we really ensure that happens.
So let's talk about the grotesque corruption in DC. DeJoy gave $2 million to Trump and the Republicans, and then they give him this job so that he can make way more than $2 million off the corruption. It's just so regular, commonplace. If they hadn't messed with the election, the Democrats would let them get away with it completely. They weren't saying anything about it. Look, what Williams resigned in April. He's been trying to bring this to Democrats' attention the whole time. People knew what Mnuchin were doing, but they never do anything about it because they think the corruption is good. They participate in the corruption. So they put as the head of the board of the governors, a Republican who is in charge of the senatorial committee fundraising for it. He raised over $100 million for Republicans, and he's on the post office board, and now he's the chairman of the board of governors of the post office. The Democrats approved that just a couple of months ago. Oh, come on, what are we doing here? What are we doing? This whole thing is just so rotten. Our government is just as corrupt as any in the world. The bags of money being exchanged, and we're getting robbed on a daily basis. So that was, like I explained in the first part, that was a regular course of events anyway. But and then the election comes about, and then they have an extra incentive to dismantle everything right now before the election. So now, the other thing I get out of this, Anna, is, okay, now we know who the vice president is. We know the president is Jared Kushner. Now we know the vice president is Steve Mnuchin. So they're the ones running the government behind the scenes. Literally every story comes back to Kushner made this decision, Kushner made that decision, Mnuchin did this, Mnuchin ordered that other department that he has no business talking to at all, that is totally unrelated to Treasury. He told him to do this, he told him to do that. Those two guys are running the government. Pence is totally useless. Yep. And Trump is a big loudmouth idiot who's like, oh, me do what? Me no like brown or black people. Bleh. That guy can't manage his way out of a wet paper bag. So Kushner and Mnuchin have taken over. It's not that they're in opposition to what Trump is asking. They're basically executing what Trump generally wants, but they are definitely running the government.
Right, I mean, like they see their position of power as a unique position that puts everything in this country up for grabs for themselves, for their personal businesses, for their personal wealth, for their political agenda. And we see it carried out over and over again. We saw it carried out when it came to the CARES Act, and where a lot of that small business money ended up. A lot of donors and friends and pals of the Trump administration ended up qualifying for that money when all these small businesses desperately needed it and were unable to secure that funding. So this is part and parcel of who the what the Trump administration is really all about. They don't really see this position of power as an opportunity to better the country or look out for the best interests of Americans, but rather the best interests of themselves. And to me, the most alarming part of the testimony that Williams gave is in this next clip where he talks about the damage that's already been done to the post office.
We're now seeing the infrastructure cuts that are destroying the Postal Service's commitment to service delivery standards and the beginning of the price increases that the president has threatened. The White House has admitted that steps taken to assure that Americans cannot vote in the next presidential election without exposing themselves to disease at the height of a deadly pandemic. I resigned from the Board of Governors because I was convinced that its independent role had been marginalized and that representations regarding an independent postal service for the nation were no longer truthful. I felt the public was owed the truth in this matter.
So Williams also served as an inspector general for the post office, and he felt that that role was essentially, ineffective because of how politicized things had become and how involved the Trump administration had become in the operations of the post office. And the scariest part is, he really did emphasize the damage that's already been done by drop boxes being picked up, by more than 600 mail sorting machines that are desperately needed in order to handle the influx of ballots, mail-in ballots, how those have been, taken out of service and how unlikely it is that they'll be put back in service. And so, I give him a lot of credit for stepping down from that job. I mean, we call out Trump's administration all the time for, putting out these anonymous leaks while remaining cowardly enough to continue working for the administration. You have this man now, Williams, who came out and said, no, I'm gonna step down and I'm gonna speak out. And I'm glad he's doing that. But now it's really up to Democrats to be ruthless in fighting back against the Trump administration and against Louis DeJoy to ensure that those mail sorting machines are put back in service and that drop boxes are also put back in place so people who want to vote by mail can easily do so.
There's almost no chance they'll be able to do that. The idea of the Democrats fighting hard, I mean, you're gonna have to rely on Rashida Tlaib and Bernie Sanders and AOC and stuff, but Pelosi and Schumer don't have that kind of fight in them. Oh, if you're gonna fight a progressive politician like Ed Markey, then Nancy Pelosi the lion, and that's the person you want in that fight. But you're fighting a Republican, little kitty cat. So they're not going to fix a goddamn thing before the election.
Well, I mean, then everything that they're doing with Joe Biden's campaign and all the money that they're raising is just a giant waste of time and a giant waste of resources. If people aren't able to cast their ballots, if the post office is unable to sort through all that mail and process the ballots the way that they should be able to, then all of this is worthless. The DNC was a waste of time. The fundraising is a waste of time. And Donald Trump will be able to essentially rig this election and win re-election when the majority of Americans don't want him in office. That's how it'll turn out. All right, we got to take a quick break. So let's do that. And when we come back, we'll get into some of the highlights of DeJoy's testimony today before the Senate. And then we'll talk a little more about some of the policing that Trump is threatening to do at actual in-person voting locations.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, You must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFDR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Be right back.
All right, back on the Young Turks, checking out with you guys. All right, e-scooter, it's yours, maybe. You enter, you can set up an aspiration account. That's a win. That's a win for you financially. That's a win for you environmentally. You win the e-scooter. That's a giant win, both financially and environmentally. The way you do it is tyt.com/green summer. You can also refer a friend, and that also allows you to enter tyt.com/green summer. All right, I'm gonna go to the members. Jody Sones writes in, I'm so excited I get to watch live today. Usually I'm at physical therapy for a hospital stay in February, but today I had a day off from that. Yay, yay, yay. Love, 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 love you guys. Being 72, diabetic with COPD isn't fun no matter how you look at it. Jody, we love, 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 love you too, okay? So it's great doing the show with you guys. Susie Woozy writes in, I received my mug and strong coffee today, and it is great. I was also sent a gift of an extra pot of coffee on the other brand. Thanks so much, I love it. I will give the extra coffee to my neighbors. How is that for awesome? Now I have what the new mugs might look like because we ran out of the old mugs. So it's could be white on white like this, okay? twostrongcoffee.com/TYT, twostrongcoffee.com/TYT. I love that you received it already. I love that you love it. And yes, that was our special little gift to everybody. Everybody who orders it now, you are gonna get a little extra in there too. So the 3 bags gets you the mug, but a little secret extra package in there for you guys. So check it out. Thank you, Susie, for the kind words. Dalamori writes in, if my wife works at a health system and is already hearing customers who receive medication by mail asking to use FedEx, etc., because they've heard reports of medication arriving late by the post office. That's exactly the plan. In fact, they don't have to completely destroy the post office. They just got to get you to lose faith in it. And the minute they do that, all those competitors that DeJoy is invested in and the Republican contributors are invested in, they're gonna make billions of dollars. So now, last one is from YouTube Super Chat. First, the YouTube members, I love reading these live now. We had a ton last night as we were doing the DNC coverage. Stephen Chris, John Halligan, Brent Penton, and Spider X Weapon X just became Young Turks members on YouTube. You can do the same by hitting the join button below. So thank you guys. And then get a load of this on YouTube Super Chat. Dr. Zippy McScoots writes in, my girlfriend and I are having, while watching TYT, it's a wonderful day. Cenk and Anna are awesome. I don't know whether to be excited or disturbed by that.
Definitely a little bit disturbed. Like, why? You guys are freaks. But okay, get it. I mean, whatever.
I mean, we are libs. We are libs.
I am not watching political news when I'm getting it in. There's like no way. Let's just keep it real.
Okay.
Okay.
I am as quickly as I can. What's the news?
All right, let's do it. So, Postmaster General Louis DeJoy testified before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. And there were several moments worth highlighting, including how he tried to play dumb when it came to the post office changing its operations by picking up mail drop boxes and also taking mail sorting machines out of service. So here's DeJoy pretending like he had no idea what was going on.
Since my arrival, we removed 700 post collection boxes, of which I had no idea that was a process, or that was a process. When I found out about it, we socialized it here amongst the leadership team and looked at what the excitement was creating. So I decided to stop it. And we'll pick it up after the election. On the machines we are speaking about, again, mail volume is dropping. This is a process that I was unaware about. It's been around for a couple of years now. And I repeat, both the collection boxes and this machine close down, I was made aware when everybody else was made aware.
Okay, so he's lying. One good factor to consider in whether you want to determine whether he's lying or not is that he has investments in companies that the post office serves as a competitor to. So already there's a huge conflict of interest there. But let me also note that he just mentioned that, I didn't know that this was going on. I didn't know that they were picking up these drop boxes. I didn't know that they were taking these mail sorting machines out of service. That's why once I found out, I decided to stop it. He decided to stop it when it was already too late, when literally hundreds of mail sorting machines had already been taken out of service. And after there was backlash, when it made national headlines and everyone was outraged, he finally decided to respond to that backlash by agreeing that he would halt these changes to the post office. But keep in mind that much of the damage had already been done, and I'm not buying for a second that he didn't know what was going on. So let me give you some of the actual numbers and evidence, and you can judge for yourselves whether you believe me or you believe this crook. So as Ari Berman tweeted out, the United States Postal Service ordered to remove 671 mail sorting machines under DeJoy. Okay, so here are some specific numbers broken down by state. So 59 were taken out of service in Florida, 58 in Texas, 34 in Ohio, 30 in Pennsylvania, 26 in Michigan, 15 in North Carolina, 12 in Virginia, 12 in Wisconsin, 11 in Georgia. And he has made it clear that he will not reinstall the mail sorting machines that have already been taken out of service. And as Ari Berman perfectly points out there, this is a major crisis, especially considering that we have this general election coming up. DeJoy mentioned that these decisions were made because there's been a slowdown in mail. Okay, that's fair, especially after the pandemic. There has been a slowdown in mail. But also because of the pandemic, it's abundantly clear that many Americans are going to rely on mail-in voting in order to cast their ballots. And the post office knows that. How do I know the post office knows that? Because they warned all 50 states that the post office will not have the capability to process all the mail-in ballots that are going to come in because they have taken these machines out of service. So that argument is null and void. It's garbage, it's trash, it's a lie. And by the way, just to show you how much of a difference this year is compared to previous years when mail sorting machines were taken out of service. In 2018, for instance, the agency, the post office, decommissioned about 3% of its delivery barcode sorters, or 125 machines. In 2019, it was 5%, or 186 machines. The 671 on this year's list amounted to about 13%. Oh, gee, I wonder why there was this sharp increase in the number of machines they took out of service in a year when we're about to have a general election. Wow, is that just a crazy coincidence? Or are we hearing from a crook who's lying to the American people about helping Donald Trump rig an election?
Okay, so two things here. So first of all, they said, no, look, we're looking to save money here because of the lower volume. And we happen to coincidentally be speeding it up massively during the election year. But it's okay, it's gonna save $1.6 billion. Okay, well, that does sound like a lot. Now there's costs associated with it too. So that's gotta be a big number to justify the costs. So did they save 1.6 billion? Nope. Theoretically, they saved $91 million, which I'm not sure even covers the costs. So as usual, a massive lie under Donald Trump. We're gonna save 1.6 billion. It's 91 million. Who cares? Who cares? Just move on. Move on. And so what is that? That's less than 10% of what they promised. Around about 6% of the cost savings that they promised. Okay. So now the second thing is, he says, I didn't know what was going on. I mean, you'd have to ask the person in charge of the post office. Dude, you're the guy in charge of the post office. That's your job. I don't know, what are we doing? We're dismantling the mailers or sorters, I don't know that. We're taking away the boxes, I don't know that. What do you know? What do you know? Do you know that it was 3%, 5%, 13%? No, I don't know. What are you doing? What are you doing? Okay, but now, as J.R. Jackson, our senior producer, said earlier this morning in our production meeting, I'm trying to give him credit for a great point there. He said, okay, wait, you don't know, but now you say it's absolutely essential that you do it. It's essential that you do the thing that you don't know about. Like, if you ask me, hey, about a physics problem that I don't know, I wouldn't say, I don't know what that's about, but it's essential. How do you know? I don't know it. I don't know it. I don't know the formula at all. I don't even know if it's right. Right? If you showed me a random formula and claimed that it was physics. So no, it makes no sense at all. This guy's an obvious liar.
Yeah, and look, the mail sorting machines are so important for the upcoming election, and the Washington Post did a great job in breaking down the numbers to show what an average worker can do with sorting mail versus what these machines can do. And to be clear, both are very important. DeJoy also has cut overtime hours for postal workers, which is also a bad move when you know you're gonna have this influx of mail-in ballots. But according to a grievance that was filed by the American Postal Workers Union, the Postal Service was poised to decommission 671 of the massive machines, about 10% of its inventory, and capable of sorting 21.4 million pieces of paper mail per hour. The Postal Service, by comparison, processes as much as 500 million items each day. So it's an important part of the Postal Service, especially during this general election, to have those machines in place. And again, Louis DeJoy is lying to us, but there was one moment where he was honest, and it had to do with whether or not he would be willing to reinstall these machines. Let's take a look.
Well, we've heard about the sorters. You addressed that earlier. Will you be bringing back any mail sorting machines that have been removed since you've become Postmaster General? Will any of those come back?
There's no intention to do that. They're not needed, sir.
So you will not bring back any processors?
They're not needed, sir.
That is also a lie. So let me go to the graphics, let me go to the numbers. States with more people, meaning more people are gonna wanna vote, right? Hence, a larger USPS footprint had more machines taken out. California had the greatest number, 76, followed by Florida, 59, Texas, 58, New York, 52, and Ohio, 34. Alaska is the only state with no machines on the list. And also, according to data provided by the union, 618 of the 671 machines were to be disconnected by August 1st. I give you those numbers because DeJoy is like, no, don't come at me, okay? Don't come at me. I said I would stop. I'm gonna stop. No more trouble. I'm not gonna touch the machines anymore. Yeah, except the plan was to get rid of 671. And by the time you agreed to stop these operational changes, 618 of the machines had already been put out of service. So the damage was already done, and he's being clear in that he will not reinstall the machines in time for the election.
Yeah, but Anna, he really needed to do that. What is it that he did? He doesn't know, but he does know it was really needed. And yeah, if you dismantle 618 out of 671, that's already mission accomplished. So this is, as usual, the Democrats whistling past the graveyard. So here's a question I would ask DeJoy. You have $30 to $75 million invested in competitors and contractors to the post office. What is it? Is it 30? Is it 75? What are the competitors? What are the contractors? And how much money are you gonna make by destroying the post office? Why are we pussyfooting around this? No, you will make tens of millions of dollars through these actions. So if you don't lay out exactly how you're planning to profit off of destroying the post office, you're not gonna have that job anymore. You're not gonna have it tomorrow. But the Democrats would never do that because unless they're fighting progressives, they're cowards.
Well, one other video that I do wanna show the audience is DeJoy, making these bold statements about how, well, these actions needed to take place. I didn't know anything about them, but these actions were essential. Okay, well, where's the data indicating that these actions were essential? He was asked that question during the hearing. Let's see how he responded.
Senator, the analysis we did would show that we would improve service to every constituent.
So that's great. So can you provide me by this Sunday, if I understand you correctly, you have an analysis that will show that this should have improved it, although we are finding out through thousands and thousands of contacts to our office, to our connections, that it has not been the case. So this is frankly unacceptable, and I would like to see the analysis that this was based on to our offices by this Sunday. Can you commit to that, sir?
No, ma'am.
Can you commit to providing it to us at all, sir?
I will get back to you on that.
You won't commit to the American people to be transparent?
Senator, I will go back and get the truck schedule, the analysis that designed the truck schedule.
I want you to look in the camera. There are millions of people watching who are impacted every day by what you do. And please understand that. And so I want you to commit to the American people, to transparency, and provide us with the data that has been used to create these decisions.
Ma'am, I do not accept the premise, and I will provide you with the transportation schedule that I directed the organization to adhere to.
So based on the former Post Office Inspector General's testimony, his name's David Williams, I can see how Louis DeJoy, an incompetent person who has no expertise whatsoever in regard to the post office, would need help and some coaching in the middle of his confirmation hearing because he's not the smartest guy and clearly doesn't have data, doesn't know what he's doing, but only has one interest in mind, and that's his own self-interest and helping Donald Trump essentially rig this election.
Yeah, if you're wondering at home, well, he doesn't sound too bright. I can see it with my own eyes whether I agree or disagree with you guys politically. How did he get all that money? Guys, you gotta remember the number one trait to, especially when you're doing government capture and crony capitalism, is shamelessness. You don't need to be that smart. You just grease a couple of politicians and they give you positions where you can make tens of millions of dollars. It's really a sick system. But I'll tell you, Anna, the one silver lining here is they're overreaching, and this is a mistake. Not on the election per se. The Trump cult was like, oh great, we're stealing an election. That's a great idea. Like he could steal an election on Fifth Avenue. I'll support him. We don't need this stinking democracy anyway. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about even those guys. They like the post office, and they don't want to pay $9, $10 to send a letter. They don't. So there's a story in the LA Times about how now the post office can't keep up. They did so many cuts, the mail is piling up for the first time ever. They're not able to deliver it on time. And then sometimes there's live things in the mails, like chicks, and
baby chicks, yeah, and
food, and it's rotting, etc. And those aren't just going to Democrats; they're going to Republicans too. In fact, I even see it in my Twitter feed. Normally, how much the right wing hates me, right? But even some of them are like, I do kind of want my mail though, right? And now they can see it's slowing down. It's slowing down, and they want the post office. So you remember Joe Rogan clowning Dave Rubin on this, right? This is a thing that even right wingers get. Like, I don't want to pay $10 for every letter, and I want my mail on time. This is that guy's making tons of money off it, and that's why Democrats drive me crazy. Talk about all the money he's making off of it. They never mention it because they like the corruption. But if they pounce on that, the right wing would also be in a rage, because even those guys, they also hate crony capitalism because they're not making any money off of it. They just got tricked into supporting the guys who do crony capitalism. So if the Democrats were just 2% populist and 5% fighters, they'd win every election super easy.
When we come back from the break, we'll talk about how Donald Trump is launching an assault not only on mail-in voting, but also in-person voting as well. And later on, we'll talk about how Nancy Pelosi is very, very concerned about protecting dynasties. Come right back.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Let's go to the members right away. Oh no, this is now becoming a thing. Zeke the Pickle Slayer says, coitus during TYT, maybe they need some too strong condoms.
Oh my God. Okay, come on.
First this, then that. Anyway, okay. Michelle says, guess who likes to use the post office? FedEx and UPS. Great point. Martin says, waiting for Tropical Storm and Lara in U.S. Virgin Islands. Thanks for helping to keep me focused on reality. Martin, stay safe, brother. M. Gray Mom writes a great point here. You mentioned Amazon a couple of times in the story about post office. I finally got fed up with paying for Amazon Prime and canceled this month. Instead of paying them $12.99 a month, I upgraded my TYT account to Activist and will donate the other $8 to Jamie Harris's campaign to unseat Lindsey Graham. Love your show. I love that. First of all, you can do tyt.com/upgrade. I love that you're helping defeat Lindsey Graham, so that's really appreciated. And by the way, on YouTube Super Chat, we'll also read your name if you upgrade your account, which gets you more videos. Speaking of which, Richard Vecchio also just became a YouTube member. And last one is from YouTube Super Chat. Sherry Bova says, I found my people during these horribly dark times. I love all of you at TYT. Thank you for giving me hope and some much needed laughs. Peace. Sherry, we love you too, sister. Thank you. All right, Anna, what's next?
All right. After a full-blown assault on mail-in voting, Donald Trump now has his sights set on doing what he can to intimidate voters when they cast their ballots in person. Now, this is based on statements that he made during a recent phone-in interview with his buddy, Sean Hannity.
It's a fraudulent election. Everybody knows it. You don't even have to know politics to know it. 51 million ballots are going to be indiscriminately sent out to people that didn't even ask for them. People are going to say, hey, I just got a ballot. That's great. Let me vote. And it's a terrible thing. They're trying to steal the election.
My question to you then is, are you going to have poll watchers? Are you going to have an ability to monitor to avoid fraud and cross-check whether or not these are registered voters, whether or not there's been identification to know that it's a real vote from a real American?
We're going to have everything. We're going to have sheriffs, and we're going to have law enforcement, and we're going to have hopefully U.S. attorneys, and we're going to have everybody and attorney generals.
We're gonna have unicorns, and we're gonna have butterflies, and we're gonna have fairies. God, he's such an idiot. Like, it's devastating how stupid he is, but how he has these fascistic tendencies, right? It's like a deadly combination, especially a deadly combination for a democratic process. So let me just give you some details. First of all, no one is getting a ballot in the mail when they haven't asked for it. You have to be registered to vote in order to get a ballot in the mail. Even if you live in some of the, one of the few states that do universal mail-in voting, you would have to be a registered voter. So of course, Trump lies to everyone when he says that like his dog got a ballot or someone's horse got a ballot. No, that doesn't happen. Also, Trump's comments come as his campaign works to recruit. He's actually putting action behind this, works to recruit tens of thousands of volunteers for what Republican officials have said could be their largest poll watching operation. Earlier this year, a Trump aide named Justin Clark said that the campaign was working to recruit 50,000 poll watchers. Trump, by the way, has no authority to deploy local law enforcement officials to monitor elections, although his campaign could hire off-duty police to work the polls. And there is history behind this. So back in 1965, conservatives wanted to intimidate black voters by utilizing law enforcement to show up to the polling stations and basically just intimidate them. And And there had to be some action taken to ensure that Black people who wanted to vote would have the ability to vote. The federal court decree for decades sharply restricted the Republican National Committee's ballot security work without prior judicial approval. The 1982 decree arose from a Democratic National Committee lawsuit that accused the RNC of trying to suppress votes in New Jersey by, among other things, posting armed off-duty police officers at the polls in Black and Latino neighborhoods. So this is the kind of behavior the Republican Party has always tried to engage in, but there used to be some regulations preventing them from being able to do it. However, the decree expired in 2018, and this election marks the first presidential contest since 1980 that the GOP presidential nominee and the RNC will work together on poll watching.
All right, so first of all, I want to explain a very important distinction. As Anna pointed out, the president can't order local police to do anything. That makes no sense. That's not how our government works. Of course, Trump doesn't know that, but as we just explained 2 days ago, he literally doesn't know the difference between the Senate and the House. He thought the Senate Majority Leader could block hearings in the House. So he knows nothing. Number two, it is a federal crime to have cops go to polling stations or federal law enforcement, because that is voter intimidation. So it's a law. If you're a right winger, you're like, oh, that sucks, man. I wanted the cops to go there and scare Black people. Well, it sucks for you. It's a federal law, so it would be a crime. Does Trump know that? Of course he doesn't know that. Did he bother looking it up? Of course not. Did he ask a single staffer out of the thousands that he has? Of course not. Total moron, just spewing nonsense out. Now, do both parties have poll watchers? Yes, they're civilians. They're not supposed to bring guns to the polling station. And it's okay for both Republicans and Democrats to have representatives there to make sure the process is fair. No one is against that. But part of what Trump wants to do, he wants the cops to go there, but he doesn't know that he can't do that because he's an idiot. But they'll tell him, no. The way that Republicans normally intimidate Black and brown people is we'll send off-duty cops, which is technically allowed, and go, hey, I'm just coming here as a civilian. We're loaded up with all my guns and looking at you all funny and asking why you're here and what business is it of yours. And maybe you know I'm a cop in the area, but hey, technically I'm off duty. See, that's how we normally do criminality. Trump's like, oh, dude, he didn't bother checking. He's so, all right. Now, I want to show you one other graphic here, though, because this is voter intimidation is done in many different ways. When the Supreme Court said, hey, you know what, guys? I don't think we need the South to be able to submit changes to federal law. They're not necessarily going to take away polling stations from minority areas to try to rig elections like they did in the battle. Jim Crow is over. So since that Supreme Court decision, let's take a look at where they've taken away the most polling places. What a coincidence. All in the South again, where they're taking away polling places. And I guarantee you they're not taking them away from white neighborhoods. They're taking them away from Black and brown neighborhoods. So these guys, Republican Party, have been trying to rig elections ever since their Southern strategy. When they became the racist party, they've always tried to rig these elections and intimidate voters, etc. Super last thing. Did you notice what Trump said in the beginning? He's like, so guys say, hey, I just got a ballot. Great, I'll vote. And what would be wrong with that? What a crazy, now all of a sudden, all the registered voters are voting. Well, we don't want that. Thank you for admitting it, schmuck.
All right, one more story before we move on to our post game. So, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is defending her decision to endorse Joe Kennedy's primary race against incumbent Democrat Senator Ed Markey in Massachusetts. A lot of people are upset about this, especially since she's being a giant hypocrite by not supporting the incumbent Democrat, something that she claims that she cares so much about. Pelosi said that Markey's campaign had crossed a hallowed line by running a negative campaign against the Kennedy dynasty. Let's hear what she had to say.
I wasn't too happy with some of the assault that I saw made on the Kennedy family, and I thought, Joe didn't ask me to endorse him, but I felt an imperative to do so. And I do that with all the respect in the world for Senator Markey, whom I served with in the House before. And again, whatever the outcome is, it will be Democratic. I would probably not be getting engaged in a primary in an election where it could impact whether a Democrat or Republican could win. But this will be a Democratic seat, and I feel at peace with the decision to support the courage and the support that for my whole life the Kennedys have given me, and in terms of the values that have inspired me, as well as the support over time.
Yeah, Joe Crowley's congressional seat wasn't vulnerable to a Republican when AOC challenged Joe Crowley. But she was very much against that race. So her argument there is nonsense. And Cenk, before you jump in, I do want to go to what she was referring to when she mentioned that she was upset at the attack against the Kennedy dynasty. She was referring to that awesome ad that Markey put out. Let's take a snippet of that.
We got to make sure President Biden signs the Green New Deal. We can't wait.
We've got to have folks in the United States Senate who are willing to stand up for working people. That's who Ed Markey is. I need Ed Markey in the United States Senate.
We asked what we could do for our country. We went out. We did it. With all due respect, it's time to start asking what your country can do for you.
Cenk, take it away.
No, Hannah, that I didn't know that he was going to viciously attack the Kennedy dynasty like that. Oh, we've got to protect the dynasties in America. Everybody knows that's what the Democratic Party stands for. The Clinton dynasty, the Kennedy dynasty, and now the Trump dynasty. Trump's got a dynasty, so Pelosi will be backing Ivanka and Don Jr. presumably in the next elections. Hey, Nancy Pelosi, I guess you don't know this, but you have a reputation for being elitist. Remember the $24,000 freezers, and remember all of the attacks against your elitism for the last couple of decades. And your main defense of attacking a fellow Democrat was, well, I do declare I have to protect dynasties, don't I? Okay, so world's worst defense. The only good news about that is she's full of crap. That's not why she's doing it at all. She's doing it because Kennedy is really good at raising money, and that is the only thing Nancy Pelosi cares about. Joe Kennedy raised $5 million in the last election cycle for Democratic leadership. And Nancy Pelosi's like, the money. Yes, I like Joe Kennedy. So that's why she's doing it. Anyone claiming otherwise is not a reporter. They're just a Pelosi ass kisser, which, by the way, immediately all the ass kissers in Washington sprung up like, well, I mean, look, she's hypocritical. I don't know, like, yes, she's hypocritical. They said they'd blacklist anyone who ran a campaign against the Democratic incumbent. Markey's a Democratic incumbent. But you know what? She's so bold the way that she did that. And that's how the Kennedys and the Pelosi's gained power, by being bold like that. Oh, just go be a banker or something. Why are you like wasting your life pretending to be a journalist? She's the world's largest hypocrite. We have a giant post-game show. Hit the join button below, and we'll see you there in a minute.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.